The United States has adopted a new official map of Morocco that includes the disputed territory of Western Sahara. On Thursday, the North African country became the fourth Arab state after the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain and Sudan to normalize relations with Israel. U.S. Ambassador to Morocco, David Fisher, signed the map during a ceremony in the capital Rabat. The map will be presented to King Mohammed VI. The conflict in the Western Sahara, ignited after Spain's colonial withdrawal from the region in 1975, leaving Mauritania, Morocco and the Polisario Front in an entrenched conflict over its sovereignty. Meanwhile, the Polisario Front, which represents the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic, has condemned Morocco's normalization of ties and has vowed to fight on until Moroccan forces withdraw from the Western Sahara. Human rights defender and African affairs commentator advocate Sipho Mantula is on Skype to share some insights on Morocco and several other African countries that have made headlines this week. Advocate Mantula, a very good evening to you. Great having you on the show. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, my brother. Evening, everyone from Africa.
Indeed, Mr. Mantula. Now, the big story that made headlines the past few days is President Trump's decision to recognize Morocco's claim over Western Sahara. This certainly pits the United States against the rest of the world, does it not?
Definitely, Sipho. But remember that USA is undermining the international law. It is undermining the UN ceasefire that was agreed in 1991. Actually, this simmering issue of redrawing of the map, it is so unjust to the people of Western Sahara, who have been fighting since 1976 for this independence from Morocco. Now, one can see that it has brought an international a conflict that it has brought even France, it has brought America in, and at the same time, it is putting Algeria as well as Mauritania to be on the side of Western Sahara. And the issue of looking even at the ties between Morocco and Israel reminds viewers and some of us the conflict that has been in the Middle East since the 1960s. So we are seeing that there are parallel lines that we can draw on this illegal endorsement by the Trump administration that is going out, by the way. So Biden might change this view of Trump of accepting this redrawing of the map between Morocco and Western Sahara.
Now that the United States has already recognized Morocco's claims over the Western Sahara, will this be perhaps the first key step for the other world powers such as the European Union, such as Russia and China, to do the same?
Not really, because Russia and France, they've already shown their interest on the issue that we need an international political legal framework to can resolve the crisis of Western Sahara. Now, America alone cannot veto its power to the other superpowers that are in the United Nations Security Council. Recognition, yes, can be done, but remember that the two countries we are talking about, they belong to the African Union. They do belong to the Arab League of States. But it is important for the Biden administration to can revert what America has done so far, because it is now creating an international conflict that is unnecessary, and it was important for the United Nations to pursue that 1991 referendum that Western Sahrawi people have been asking from the UN.
All right. Now, does the United States, recognition of Morocco's claims over Western Sahara have a legal standing? As a matter of fact, I spoke to the Sahrawi ambassador to South Africa on Friday, and he said that President Trump's declaration is merely ceremonial and it's got no legal standing. So what's your views with regards to the legality of such a declaration? Does it hold any water?
Definitely, it doesn't hold water, Sipho, and like your analyst put it rightly so, it was just a masking of what we call diplomatic attention by the Trump's office. And at the same time, remember, like I said earlier, the link of even Rabat connecting with Tel Aviv now with Israel. It shows the new pattern of how America is trying to even divide these African countries that have been in loggerheads around the issues of independence. So I don't think America can override the international law, because recognition of states and the issues of border demarcation have been a problem. Remember that secession in most of the African countries have been pushed by the issues of natural resources and even the interest of foreign powers. You'll understand the issue of Eritrea, Ethiopia, you'll understand the issue of the North Sudan, Southern Sudan. So many secessions that have happened in the African continent, we are fully aware that European countries have been having this appetite and this interest.
Let's talk about the political stalemate now that is currently unfolding in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Some analysts saying that President Tshisekedi has now silenced his naysayers with some huge and significant political gains.
That is quite true. You can call them a parliamentary gymnastics that happened during this week in Kinshasa. But if you remember vividly on this show, as I was talking to you at some point, Tshisekedi was going to push for the majority or for the coalition in parliament to first do two things. Impeach the Speaker of Parliament, who was very close to Kabila, remove some of the chairpersons who are in their committees in Parliament, some of them related to Joseph Kabila. And thirdly, again, the issue of around electoral reform, how to constitute the Electoral Commission. Now, what Tshisekedi has done was to push Kabila out of what he could have said, we have not been having the power to change the economy of DRC because we have been having proxy leaders. And that's where you saw on Tuesday, like I was saying, it was gymnastic, it was forcing and fighting around parliament. But we saw only on Thursday, there was that parliamentary motion that has removed Janine Mabunda as the Speaker of Parliament. And that gives Tshisekedi even another move that he might want to remove even the Prime Minister, who's a close ally to Joseph Kabila.
Can we say that President Tshisekedi has now wrestled full control over, the power corridors in the DRC? And in as much as former President Joseph Kabila may be on the back foot, but let's not forget that he still has substantial clout over his allies in parliament and in the military.
Correctly, Sipho, but as we explained that instead earlier, the African Union is concerned, the SADC is concerned about this politics of coalition taking place in the DRC, taking into account that the DRC will be leading the African Union come 2021. So it is important for the stable DRC, but for Tshisekedi, again, it is the issue of trying to, to work around his institutional competence, because you'll understand he was dealing with the military, he was dealing with the security sector. Now he goes to the parliament where he felt that as a president he was just ceremonially, he didn't have powers to change. Like even a mere appointment of judges, Kabila's grouping or MPs in parliament will block it. So that's how he saw this power of him to engage with other smaller political parties, to engage on dealing with Joseph Kabila, common front of the Congo People Party.
Is what's happening in the DRC a potential breeding ground for more violence, bearing in mind that former President Joseph Kabila he still commands a huge support in that country?
Correctly, Sipho, as I was speaking, even in the northern part of the DRC this afternoon, I picked up in Beni, there were some killings by the other rebel grouping. So DRC, it is not stable in the eastern part between Rwanda and Burundi. DRC, it is not even coming out of the COVID-19 issues that they are still struggling to cope. They were dealing with Ebola, they are dealing with the issue of multinationals who are still taking some of their natural resources to Europe. So DRC, there are some challenges that needs actually for political dialogue. It needs even for the AU not to lose sight on their support towards DRC. Hence I said the silencing of guns, the issues around International Human Rights Day that we're thinking of this week are just mere celebrations that we are losing even to talk about the right to life of the people of the Democratic Republic of Congo.
All right, let's now move on to the Ghana elections. The former president has now, contested or rather protested at the outcome of this election. Is he likely to get the necessary recourse? Are there any structures that would allow him to get the recourse?
Simply, history tends to repeat itself. If one can recall that 8 years ago, both two candidates had the same what we call electoral dispute that came out of the results. Now, John Mahama, as a former president, remember he's now raising two issues. He was raising the issue of the voters' roll. He raised the issue that even parliamentary seats that he have already won the majority, when actually it was a tie to a point where they have only got 136 seats. But when you look at the election results again, he's lamenting about the role of the security forces, that the role of the military was to intimidate the voters, and that's where he will definitely, they are still scanning some of the election results where they might, within 3 weeks, take the matter to court. Definitely Ghana, you can say it is a beacon of African democracy. Some of us will call it the first African democratic state in 1957. So Ghana will normally take their matters to the judiciary, but not to the bushes. And you'll understand that in 2012, that matter, it was brought in this instance by Nana Kofu against Mahama. And that matter took almost 8 months in the corridors of court. And at the same time, that was a suspense of governance and as well of democratic gains. So one looks at Ghana, that even the election observer missions, reports that I have read, one feels that they were too lenient to the role of the police and the soldiers during elections. Yes, they might have been peaceful, transparent, but there was some pockets of electoral violence in the Volta region in Accra.
Well, the election observers there says the commission's results are, are within an acceptable margin of error. So what are some of the sticking points that Mr. John Mahama is raising?
Those are the sticking points that I raised earlier of the voters' roll, but at the same time, the role of the security forces and the tallying of the results. Hence, I raised the issue of he feels that he won the parliamentary seats, when the Electoral Commission is saying that actually he got 130 seats and the ruling party got almost 137. So it was very marginal, and you'll understand that the opposition party, this election, they have done very well because they've gained more voters than the ruling party. And at the same time, they are even a real opposition with only a margin of 1 seat. So like I've said, Simpiwe, the electoral justice system, the mechanism in Ghana allows them to engage rather than to go to a conflict that will definitely harm and hurt the economy of Ghana, which is still ailing, by the way, based on these COVID-19 restrictions.
Yeah, it is certainly, election season on the African continent, and there are also elections in Niger today, and we've seen people coming out in numbers, despite the fact that, just a day after the attack by Boko Haram killed 27 people, people still came out to vote.
When you talk of Niger, you're talking of the Sahel region, you're talking of your Mali, the Central African Republic, but Niamey as the capital seat of Niger. Today, these are very important elections because it is what we call a test before the presidential and legislative elections, which will be held by the end of this month, by the way, on the 27th. Now, today is the local government elections, which have been delayed for more than 16 years. Now, imagine if you don't have a local democratic systems in most of our African countries like Niger. So these elections of almost 7.4 million people who are going to cast their vote for a mayor. There are 3 cities, by the way, that have been fought. Is Niamey as the political capital city, Maradi as the economic capital. So it is important, even as you have said, that the spoilers, the active rebel groups in the Sahel are not happy to see democracy thriving. Like I've said to you, Simpiwe, for 16 years, we never had local government elections. But presidential, legislative will be held on the 27th of this month. And for the first time, we see their president not going for the second term, not learning from the bad apples like in Ivory Coast, bad apples like in Equatorial Guinea, like Alpha Conde and Alassane Ouattara, who have gone for the third term, to able to change the constitution. So we do hope people of Niger will cast their vote come 27 December, as they've done this morning as well in Niamey.
Indeed, as was just mentioned, when it comes to the presidential elections, can Niger be classified as another beacon for democracy in West Africa? Because we've seen incumbent president being praised for stepping aside and allowing his successor to take over after his mandatory 2 terms.
Definitely, you'll understand that Niger tried to learn from what happened in Mali with Abu Bakr Keita was removed by the police, by the military early this year. And now the issue of understanding that the power of leadership, you don't stay until Jesus comes in the office, like we see with Ouattara, with Alpha Conde. We have seen with many African leaders in this continent, your Museveni, your Kagames of today. You will have them that have appetite to stay at the state house rather than developing their countries. So it is important that we see this change happening in the smallest area in West Africa, Niger, in Niamey. And that's where I feel that the African Union as well must engage.
This coming Thursday, on the 16th of December, it is the day of reconciliation in South Africa. But then where are we in terms of bringing ourselves to reconcile with our foes, with our detractors?
You know, if one thinks of the continent and of South Africa, that it will be almost 25 years that when we think of South Africa, that it was on this day of 16 December, the formation of Umkhonto weSizwe. But this day, it is important that in 5 years, we had to chart a new journey on issues of reconciliation, TRC, the issues even of dealing with racism in this country, because we still have a historical divisions, separation, and not even equal status in this country. So the issues of reconciliation are very important. Amidst that we're in COVID-19, the commemorations will be done online, but what is important is to understand even challenges of gender-based violence, to understand the challenges of racism that this country has been seeing from Cape Town to Colini. We have seen all these cases coming up again, and as a country, we might be needing that spirit of reconciliation. And finally, again, Sipho will understand, even the TRC came into force during almost 25 years ago when the Truth and Reconciliation Commission was being formed. And we now still see today that perpetrators of those crimes are still looming around, and there was no proper reparations for the victims of apartheid. So those are the important reflections when we look at this last public holiday, which is amidst the president talk tomorrow on the coronavirus update. So you can see that it will be a very hectic week as we are celebrating reconciliation and at the same time the president talking on COVID-19 regulation.
It is often said that the reconciliation of certain racial groups in South Africa may be a pie in the sky, well, at least at this particular point in time, because we've seen so much racial polarization going on here in the country. We've seen so many deaths as a result of such polarization. And one then wonders what could be the genesis? What could have been the genesis of such antagonisms between those racial groups? And what could the solution be? Could it be the economic emancipation of the majority as a result of that? Could it be the panacea for peace and reconciliation in South Africa?
You know, Sipho, what I've captured very well is that in 1994, 1995, we did what we call a cosmetic. We did not unmask racism and apartheid. Actually, we did a cosmetic reconstruction of an apartheid system. We did not eliminate it and eradicate it, because that's where we saw the pockets, even in the parents now going to the children, going to the shops with their advertisement of undermining the African dignity. And as we talk about the solution even still lies with our respect for humanity. The issues of social cohesion are very important in this country, and the issue of not undermining the African leadership in this country, because there is this tendency that Miriam Makeba once said, that it seems that what the white people are saying and they're doing, it is perfect. And it's only when they come and they tell us that they have found this, that's when we can believe them. So it is important for us to mend our relations. They must understand, even in these commemorative days, we hardly see the white communities in most of our national commemorative days. Then you ask yourself, whom are we reconciling with when actually our enemies are sitting in the high fences, in the high places, and our poor people are still languishing in poverty, and at the same time being the poverty of the mind, being the poverty of not understanding that racism, it is power dynamics. Racism, it is capitalism as well. It is the issue of economic domination. So it is important for those TRC reports to be looked into. Hence, you will see the ANC, it just wake up from its sleep and say lawyers must check if they can still prosecute apartheid criminals. So one asks, why did they not follow the TRC reports of the Amnesty report when they were coming? What happened to the TRC unit that was supposed to prosecute apartheid criminals? So that's why you see that racism reconciliation cannot be achieved so long as you have this other side that has been in denial of understanding that indeed the African people are in leadership and they are in domination of their people. And that's where simply reconciliation cannot be left without social justice and equal rights to our people.
Advocate Sipho Mantula, great chatting to you. Thank you so much for your analysis. Jah guide and Jah protect.
Thank you, my brother. Asante.